2023. It's 6 p.m. We are in Veterans Hall on the second floor. We are not in the old office building. We are on 308 Main Street. If you want to join us, you can join us. The Conservation Commission will be holding this meeting in person with the option of virtual attendees. In-person attendance will be at the meeting location that I said above. So, hi, Karsten. For attendance, we have Eric Gasper. Present. Karsten.
Present.
Ed Goodwin. And Ted Weinglass. Ted?
Present.
Okay. We are missing Roy, but he is hoping to check in. Becky, you want to?
Roy's on. Roy's on.
Oh, Roy's on? Okay, great. Hi, Roy.
Hi, Ed.
Becky, you want to?
Well, do you just want to read the opening for the public hearing, just to get that out of the way?
Oh, yeah, that's probably a good idea. Let me see if I can find that. In the interest of saving time, Sturbridge Conservation Commission will hold all public hearings tonight for work within a wetland, water body, or resource area, or within 200-foot buffer zone to a wetland, water body, or resource area in accordance with the Mass Wetland Protection Act, MGL Chapter 131, Section 40, and associated regulations, and the Town of Sturbridge Wetlands Bylaw and associated regulations. We will not be reading the newspaper ad. Prior to the opening of each hearing for each project, the applicant is to submit proof of notification to abutters within 200 feet of the subject property line and proof of legal newspaper advertisement. If these items are not submitted, the public hearing will not open. Additionally, prior to the start of each public hearing, we will announce the location of the project, the applicant, and the applicant's representative. If any of the visitors have not legibly signed in yet, please do so. Also, if any visitors are recording this meeting, please let us know. Thank you.
So there's a couple minutes before the first public hearing. We do have Brandon here representing the town through the Trails Committee with an emergency request, if you want to come up.
So Brandon Goodwin, Chair of the Sturbridge Trails Committee. We have an opportunity right now at Long Pond where we have 6 culvert sections that need to be removed from a crossing that, if you know the Long Pond property, the north side, just near the highway, we have a trail that goes in, crosses over about 28 feet of culvert, 2 sections, and then goes up into the woods and all the way down around Long Pond. And right now, this is something that we were planning to submit an NOI for and get that work scheduled for next year. We have an opportunity with the fact that they're redoing that bridge. The water level has dropped 1.5 feet to 2 feet. So there is, very little water, in this culvert. And I think, Becky, do you have the pictures in the PDF I sent?
I did put them with the detailed agenda.
Okay, so you all have it, okay.
Yep. So I just want to add to that. So, the Army Corps has lowered the water levels there. We knew that there was concerns with the outer sections of this culvert. It's not the culvert underneath the old roadway that would be coming out. It's just the outside sections. Right. And now that the water level's been lowered, you can see in the photos there that there's a lot more erosion and issues that are occurring there. Therefore, they'd like to take out those sections that have segmented off and be able to repair that erosion before the water levels rise back up over there. So it's a little more significant of an issue than what they thought. And with the water level being down, it would seem to be better for resource areas to try to accomplish that work at this time.
Yeah, definitely. And so, yeah, the culvert would end up being 16 feet as opposed to 28 feet. It would take 2 sections off of each culvert on the north side and 1 section on the south side. And northern tree has actually, we tried to remove some of the blockage from previous beaver dams and other things that were logs that were down that were blocking the culvert and causing the trail to be over, to flow over. And at this point, we couldn't do it with the mini excavator. That was a while back, trying to clean things up. And so it requires heavy equipment. And so Northern Tree has volunteered in the next 2 weeks before things freeze to come in and remove all 6 sections of culvert and the 3 miscellaneous culverts that are sitting on the side of the trail, and take them off property and dispose of them at no charge to the town. So while we have someone volunteering resources and funds to do it, at the same time, we have an opportunity with the water level being down 2 feet, that it seems, it's a great time to fix this problem.
Would you put in a new culvert, or?
No, so there's 16, it's 28 feet. We would just be removing 4 feet off the south end and 8 feet off the north end, so it would come down by 12 feet to a 16-foot culvert. So in essence, you're daylighting more of the culvert, and all of those sections are split away from, they're 4-foot sections, and you can see that they're split away and starting, the cracks and roots are growing down between them.
So essentially, just removing those broken pieces out, and then along the bank of what's staying, adding some stabilization there.
But the water flow would still work.
Yeah,
no changes to that.
There's no, any sections we would remove, anything that's fresh around that would be ripped, wrapped, and per the Army Corps, we have to, we can't, it's all about water volume. When you take, things out of a floodplain, they want to maintain a consistent water volume. And so there is rock on site that was from when the highway was built. That is a pile of rock that we're able to use as riprap to secure around the culvert as well.
Does this emergency, does it fall under, our ability to permit this or allow this under an emergency? It seems perfectly practical for us to take this up, and I think it's permittable, and we've discussed this before, but I just wouldn't want to use the emergency statute for something that is, it's an improvement, yes, and it's more of a convenience item. So I'm just curious if we're putting ourselves in any peril of utilizing the emergency provision to do this as opposed to going through the normal channel.
Right, so emergencies are for public health or safety concerns. So if there's a safety concern associated with it, then I think you could use that towards that if you wanted.
Okay. I just
And the safety concern.
just wouldn't want to set a bad precedent.
Totally fair, and that's why we're here tonight. It's
Ted? Anything?
No, it was a good question, Eric.
Roy?
She asked. I think it makes sense to remove it and
Any questions,
clean it
Roy?
up. Sounds like it's a good opportunity.
And they are still proposing to file the notice of intent afterwards for the project as well. So it will go through permitting.
Yeah, but with a CR held by OPACUM and other processes around that, we don't expect to have an NOI processed, with less than 2 months easily. So, and that's the concern. The only concern we have there is, we'll be back in. We don't know how long they're going to keep the water level down. I think that it becomes variable after December. We know that might change, and then from there, we don't know when we'll have the window.
Carson, anything? No? Anybody in the audience? Seeing none?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the emergency permit as a safety precaution, and request that a notice of intent after the fact is filed so we can close this out properly.
Second.
We have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Yeah. Seeing none, all in favor?
Eric Gaspar in favor?
Carsten Stüber in favor?
Roy?
Aye.
Bishop in favor.
Ted?
Ed Windass in favor.
Ed Goodwin in favor. Okay. Thanks, Brandy.
Thank you all. Have a nice night.
Thank you very much, appreciate it.
It's good stuff. We'll get there.
I'm sure the people over there aren't enjoying the traffic problems that that's creating for them, but this is a good resolution of that. So,
Yeah, it's a little by little in that area.
yeah, well, thank you. Merry Christmas.
Have a nice night. Merry Christmas.
Yep. All right, we are now to 6:05. Righty. We're at 505 Main Street, notice of intent, commercial property, development, DEP file number 300, we don't have no number?
Correct. No file number.
No file number. Okay. So do we have an applicant?
Yep. Ron, I'll pull up the plans on the screen for you too, if you like. And just for the record, before you get started, we do have proof of legal ad and abutter notifications.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Ron Mendez from Graves Engineering. I'm here on behalf of the STL Group for the proposed project at 505 Main Street. The applicant would like to redevelop this existing property. It currently has a building that's been unused for some time. It was previously used for commercial purposes, and it has some paved parking areas. Essentially, though, they would like to remove the superstructure, reuse the foundation, and construct a multifamily residential building. Hopefully having 8 units and 16 parking spaces, thereby removing the existing paved parking areas. As also part of the project, they would like to install stormwater management features, specifically a bioretention area for the project. That would be located at the end of the parking area. I should note that there are no wetlands on the property. However, there are wetlands on the property immediately to the south of it. So the 25-foot buffer zone and the 50-foot buffer zone do extend onto the property. So some of the work will be within those areas. Within the 50-foot buffer zone, they would like to remove the paved parking and construct the bioretention area. Within the 25-foot buffer zone, they would also like to remove the paved parking and pretty much restore it as much as possible. But that being with the side slope of the bioretention area and vegetate that as much as possible. The outfall for the bioretention area would be within the 25-foot buffer zone. So we'd ask if we could work within these two respective areas. I guess that's pretty much it.
Yeah, we do have a pointer there. So if they have any questions and ask, you can point up there and direct them. Do you want me to go to the proposed plan sheet and just kind of go through that a little bit? Okay. I'm going to use this one.
Becky,
Do you want me to go? Yeah, sure. So Ron and I did speak today. We kind of went over the fact that, work within the 25-foot and the 50-foot would require a waiver. We talked about some options for a waiver. My understanding, they're going to look at some options to kind of work towards meeting that request and see how maybe they can move things back a little bit. Like you said, the outfall for the bioretention area is within the 25-foot no disturb. There might be some opportunities to move that back. We also talked about, options, if the parking could be moved outside, looking at different alternatives and documenting why or, what could be done as some alternatives for there. We went over in kind of depth the stormwater management here today as well. had a couple questions and things. I asked them to look at some, can one change the, layout of the structure to kind of move back out of there a little bit, but looking at the outfall options and how maybe we could change what they're showing on here. So they're going to look into a few different things on that, which could provide some, hopefully maybe some better infiltration opportunities on the property as well. Like he said, resource areas are off-site. We do have a bordering vegetated wetland just off the bottom of the property here. There is Quinnebog River in the back, however, it's outside of riverfront area. There are two intermittent streams, both on the east and the west, further away from the property. Did go through and look at the information. Doesn't appear that they would be perennial based off of the topo maps and looking at the stream stats. One of the questions that I did have was going over the bordering land subject to flooding, just looking at what the elevations were for that to confirm that it's off-site. I think it probably is, but I think we just need to look into that and figure that out and get that noted on here too.
Sure, we can confirm that.
So that's primarily it on my end. We don't have the DEP file number, therefore obviously would do a continuance here. They recommend they, go over what the requirements for the waiver are, document the alternative analysis they did, and mitigation requirements, if needed, if they can't pull out of those areas.
Okay, Eric?
So is there a requirement that you guys are trying to accomplish with these two extra?
The
Or is it
requirement,
just additional parking?
actually, the requirement being that it's 2 parking spaces per dwelling unit. So in this case, since we're proposing 8 units, in order to obtain the 16 units, there's 2 parking spaces at the end over there.
Oh, so when we were on site, the applicant had mentioned something around some of these being artist studios, which does not require 2 per, or does that still require 2
I
per?
think that requires the 2 per
My
parking
understanding is
spot.
that yes.
Okay. Separately, I think I heard you mention that you're going to be utilizing the existing foundation.
Yes.
How is that possible, given that, I mean, at least on site, we're carrying the back wall here kind of further out? So are you utilizing the existing foundation and then adding to it? Is that what's going to be happening here?
Yes, essentially. They'd like to reuse as much as possible. I would anticipate that some of it, would have to be constructed.
Okay, so you're utilizing the existing foundation, but you are expanding it.
As needed, but for the most part, we figured it would work.
Okay. And I'm sure the calculations are somewhere on the plans, but I'm getting older and my eyes aren't as good as they used to be. So what's the calculation of pervious versus impervious, kind of pre-project to post-project within the 100-foot and 50-foot? Do you have that?
Off of the 100-foot, I do not have that amount. In terms of the 50-foot, the value that I have of impervious versus, pre and post is 2,000 square feet within the 50-foot, and it reduces to about 300 square feet. And then within the 25-foot area, we have about 300 square feet of paved areas. And we wouldn't have any paved areas afterwards.
Okay. So there's currently within the 25-foot, 300 square feet, you're telling me?
Yes.
This is down here?
Yes.
Is that accurate? Okay. If you could, because we can't take any action on this anyway, if you could give me the calculations within the 100-foot for the next meeting, that would be helpful for me.
Of course.
And I'd be interested to see if there's any type of reconfiguration that could be made to pull these out and address some of the concerns that the agent had on the stuff more here to the side of the property as well. But this, if you could justify that there's no alternative to having those there, I'd appreciate that.
Okay. I guess as a clarification, how long before, is there a deadline for submitting the information?
7 days
7
prior
days.
to the hearing.
Okay, cool, thank you.
Next hearing is the 4th.
That's all my
That's
questions.
you, Parson? Ted?
No, I just, we all did the site walk out there. I guess my question is, what is this diamond-shaped pad above
This one?
in the lower left-hand? Yeah, what is?
That's the dumpster.
Oh, that's the dumpster pad that was referenced in the notes?
Yep.
So that too needs to change, is that correct?
Yes, according to Board of Health, he suggests they review the dumpster sizes and create a pad large enough to accommodate trash and recycling dumpsters as required by state and local regulations.
And is that area to be paved as well? And then there's a pad on top of that, is that right?
Yes.
Or is that sitting on grass?
The entire area would be paved up to
The entire area is paved there? Okay.
Roy, anything?
Go ahead, I'm good, thank you.
So, just for clarification, the berm that was in here, the grass berm, is going to be all parking?
You mean the grass slope going down to the
Yeah,
back?
yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Yes.
Yes or no?
I guess I'm not completely sure on the question. The grass berm that,
The grass slope,
The
so
original,
oh,
this whole area.
yeah.
yes, part of that would become parking. There is a strip, yes, that is currently grass and it would become parking.
Coming down
I
the
think it's
hill,
parking and building, probably.
say, I didn't hear.
Parking and building.
No, it looks to me like they're going to extend the rear of the building towards the wetlands. The front of the building, if I'm correct, right, the existing foundation that you're going to add onto is in the back end of the building.
I don't know that one. I'd have to double check the architectural plans to see what they proposed there.
Yeah, I mean, it's essentially, it's to the 100-foot line,
Yeah.
right? But
Want me to go back?
this is new.
You want me to go back to the existing conditions?
It's helpful to show.
So here's the
site
100 foot, and there's the current back of the building.
Yep.
And this is all the grass area.
What was grass, right?
All this is grass, currently grass.
Yes.
And this is that old parking area with the vegetation that's growing over it here.
Now, going back to the other slide, this is, the topography on this is sloping downward. Do we have any, what's this here?
Contour line.
That's just a contour line of what, that,
So this area would be excavated out with a retaining wall around it, it looks like.
No, that would be just a berm. No retaining wall is being proposed as part of the project.
how does, if you, what's the excavation out gonna be? How many feet?
Let me see. We are proposing in that vicinity, let's say where I have, let's say TC, at this point, 589, the existing contour is 589.
So it's not staying 589?
Yes.
I guess I'm gonna have to look at these on my plan. Where's the slope going?
The slope would be going towards the south, towards the bottom of the page, so to
Yeah.
speak. So in other words, it's going this general direction.
But this wouldn't be sloped here. So you can see the dotted lines here, Ed, those are the existing
Those are the existing
contour.
topo
Yeah,
lines. Yeah.
so that will come out, it looks like a little bit.
So it's changing. It's not 589 and gonna be 589.
No, so 589 again is existing over here, 588 is the existing, 587, 580, and then 586 is more or less in that area.
Okay. So now, is there any way we can have this retention structure any further away from the wetland?
Off the top, no, I don't think so. Given that we're trying to accommodate the parking. No, I've tried looking to see in other manners and stuff like that, but trying to work the slopes and all that, it just doesn't seem like I could manage it.
All right. Anybody have any further questions? I mean, we can't close this, so. Ted, Roy, you all set?
No, I'm all set.
Eric?
All good, thanks, Ed.
So, there's, to remove these, there's no way, and I don't even know if this is practicable, like, I'm trying to picture what we saw there. This couldn't be moved over here and have, and kept up here, right? So they still have access to these parking areas here and move these parking areas over here, further away from, out of the 50 foot over into here and figure out a way to reconfigure it that way? That's not possible?
No.
Is that an aesthetic thing, or is it a?
No, it's more so like because of the driveway widths that are required, a minimum of 24 feet, I mean. So for instance, from here, let's say from the bottom of that island to here, I have 24 feet because that's what the regulations require that you have in terms of pulling out and then maneuvering. And trying to do that over here, I probably need something like that. I mean, if the width over here is probably, I don't know, maybe 10 feet at most, because the parking spaces are 9 by 18. So I probably need, if I put a parking space over here, I'd be extended out to here, and it wouldn't give me the sufficient space to pass by over here. Even if I try parallel, same situation, I would still be in that, I need to maneuver out, unfortunately.
So those lines aren't to scale then, is what you're saying, up here?
Which ones?
These here.
Those
It
are,
would seem to me.
those are to scale,
Those are?
yes.
So it would seem to me, if you're talking about the same amount of distance, if we just were to go down to here, we'd only come out to about here, which is what you already have for distance. And from a width-wise, that's at least 2 that you could fit within that area. I mean,
Yeah, I see what you mean.
I'm not trying to
No,
engineer
no.
your plan, I'm just thinking
Well,
that.
it's kind of the question I was asking, is a better use of that space.
Right. And then if that comes over here, right, then this becomes less necessary,
Right.
right?
Yeah. Which allows us to be further away from the wetland.
Right.
I see what you mean, but again, it's, I need a travel way of 24 feet. So whenever, like I also have 24 feet from the end of these parking spaces to that.
You
So
could just go straight backwards and then go on.
well, I still need, let's say, in two-way traffic, usually you have that 24-foot width. So even if I
We waive that.
do stuff like that, that's my hindrance there. I can't narrow it down to just one way, unfortunately.
Why does it have to be two-way? A parking lot?
Regulations.
Parking lot? A private parking lot?
Well, it's commercial
Now,
too, right?
Do you have
And then still the regulations still
do you
require
have an
that.
egress into the next door? Is that the road going over, is that a right of way?
No, to my knowledge, no, it's not a right of way for any of the parties there.
So, and do you own, is this your line of ownership here?
Yes, that is the property line.
Okay, I don't have any other questions.
Right, maybe you can just look at that a little bit more and give them a little information coming back, how that might not be possible,
Yeah.
or if it is possible, work to kind of
Sure thing.
accommodate that.
I'll look it up and maybe I can provide something then.
Public?
Yeah. All right,
Is anybody in the public who would like to comment on the project?
you knowing? Motion to continue?
Yeah, motion to, actually, one question. if it's possible, because I'm a very visual person.
Okay.
When you come back with the plans, if you could have an overlay of the previous structures with at least a shadowing in there, so I can kind of visualize on that, because it's kind of hard for me to kind
Okay.
of see them.
Easy enough.
right?
I can do that.
But accepting that, I'd like to make a motion to continue this public hearing until January 7th, is it? Or what, or 4th?
January 4th.
4th. Wasn't even close, third time's a charm. January 4th.
I second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Eric Gaspar in favor?
Austin Stuber in favor?
Ted?
In favor.
Roy?
In favor.
And Ed Goodwin in favor. All right. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Yep. We are now at 6:15.
This part out.
241 and 245 Main Street, notice of intent, paving of a commercial parking lot, DEP file number, and you don't have a number.
It's the story of the night.
Holy mackerel.
Just for the record, we do have proof of abutter notifications and legal ad for opening of the public hearing.
Oh, we do, okay.
Yeah, DEP's supposed to get extra staff next year, so they should be quicker about getting file numbers issued. Well, that's what
Next
I'm told.
calendar year or next fiscal year?
Next calendar, they're supposed to start in January.
Oh, that'd be nice.
So,
Good evening. My name is David Feist with CMG. I'm the project civil engineer. With me tonight, Scott Morrison with Ecotech. They're the wetlands consultant that did the wetlands delineation of the property. Also tonight is the property owner, Craig Moran, is with us as well in the audience. Mr. Chairman, if possible, I'd like to just go up. I could just do a brief presentation and then answer any questions you may have.
Go ahead.
Just to have a sort of a brief overview, the property is located at 241 and 245 Main Street over on Route 131. I know you did a site visit a few weeks ago back. The property, the original building was built circa 1931, and the other building was built circa 1961, that vintage, prior to the Wetlands Protection Act. To start with the purpose of the project, the applicant solely wants to repave areas that were paved in the past, and also there's areas of compact gravel and other on the property as well that are also considered impervious from a drainage design standpoint that we'd also like to offer to either pave, or the applicant's willing to leave some areas as is, depending on, you know, as we go through the permitting process. So I'll give you a brief overview of the property itself. There's several resource areas and, you know, around the property. It actually borders the Army Corps' Westville Dam property floodplain area. So the property is made up of two parcels. The Army Corps property is down here. Hobbs Brook winds through here. Currently, that area, as you saw, is very flooded as the beavers over the years have, you know, backed up part of that area. However, if you do look at the Sturbridge GIS mapping as well as USGS mapping, you can see the outline of where Hobbs Brook used to be, which is, you know, located somewhere off of this area. With that, there's part of the 200-foot riverfront zone, skirts the edge of the property here. Also, the Army Corps has a flowage easement at elevation around 576 that's highlighted in blue along this area here. That's basically sort of the limit of the bordering land subject to flooding. In addition, we did Ecotech flag the wetland line, and you can see the entire property is located in the 100-foot buffer and the 200-foot buffer. Over the years, the site's historically been used as an automobile maintenance facility as well as a towing facility since I think the circa, you know, the late 60s, early 70s. Currently, Mr. Moran operates the mobile medical and his towing business out of this facility. The surveyor located several areas of basically historical pavement. You can see just, I sort of tried to just at least shade in the areas of where basically the broken pavement and where the area was paved. There's also an area of gravel down below in the lower part of the property, which over the years has been used for equipment storage, trailers, and as well has been basically devoid of, I guess, topsoil. So if you're like in the riverfront, a lot of these areas have been previously disturbed for quite a while that we believe predates some of the Wetlands Protection Act. In addition, the Army Corps, I had a nice conversation with Keith Beecher of the Army Corps. We're working with them. As the property line, they had just some plans they provided us this week. As this rear property line, there were two things. There was the flowage easement, which is highlighted here in blue, in addition to a taking that was done back in around the 1980s. So Keith's been nice enough to provide us with a plan, and we'll be revising the plan just to show the property line as part of, as we work through the process. So tonight we're really here just to request, basically our notice of intent plan is to request basically paving areas that were already paved. Again, we're providing erosion control around the perimeter. He's proposing the full depth reclamation will be basically a 6 inches digging down out the old broken pavement area, putting 6 inches of new compact gravel underneath, and then 4-inch overlay throughout the areas that were paved that are on his property, all the way to the edge of the back of the sidewalk along the roadway. The area in here is also, again, is historically been sort of gravel, compact gravel, which under our drainage calculations, pavement's usually considered 98, compact gravel for purposes of drainage, and others usually around 98 to 96 is what we've used in the past. And I know years back, I don't know if you remember at the Children's Dentistry parking lot, we had an issue there where that was a gravel parking lot for a long number of years. The gravel, one of the issues with it is, with the sediment and silt, a lot of the runoff was going into Cedar Brook. So every time we got a heavy rainstorm, a lot of the silt, Cedar Brook would have that coffee colored, laden with some of the sediment from that parking lot. We did permit that back. I was working at a different firm at the time, and Scott, I believe, worked on that project as well. We worked with the commission, and we were allowed to repave that parking lot, which resulted in a big improvement of less sediment going into the brook in that particular case. And that was one of the reasons here as well, is to hopefully, because there's really, given it's been in existence for quite a period of time, there's a steep slope along the rear area. There's really not a lot of room for improvements. We are proposing an 18-inch gravel strip along the downhill perimeter of the areas that were paved, provide a little bit of a sort of a gravel diaphragm for the water to flow through. And if needed, we'd also be willing to possibly expand that even a little larger to maybe make it either a 5-foot to 10-foot area as well of gravel to maybe break it up. And we'd be happy to answer any questions you might have about the project. And Scott's here as well to answer any wetlands questions. Thank you.
Becky?
Thanks for mentioning the correspondence with Army Corps. That was one of the things they reached out to us too, with questions about the property line. So glad to see you're working on that, and we should have something updated for that for the next meeting, I would anticipate. As far as resource areas, obviously I think you probably read the detailed agenda. There's some questions about that I'd like to come back with some answers, just kind of clarifying that. It is an area that has been ponded for a long time, but I think we just got to work through and show that it doesn't have those riverine characteristics that DEP would require. So go through that. You touched on borderland subject to flooding. Just go over that as well. It is very well elevated, so it's probably unlikely that it's within that, but we'll just demonstrate that for us. Going through, right, I mean, we've talked about, there's some remnant portions of pavement that are out there. There's gravel out there. I think the intent to pave the area would be a good improvement. It is a land use with a high pollutant load, so I think we just got to go through and make sure that we're hitting all of those stormwater standards correctly for everything, as well as, sorry, losing my train of thought there, making sure that, infiltration and all of the pretreatment requirements are being met for that too. So I think that with it being that elevated kind of historic fill site, we were on site, we talked about it, I think there's probably some good opportunities things that could be easily done to make some good improvements to stormwater there by using that historic parking lot area, something, if anything underground can be done, that might have good infiltration rates with that fill material. So I think that we should just look at that a little bit better.
Okay?
Can I respond to a couple of those?
That's up to.
No, let's go through, let's
that's
go in
fine.
the ad, and then you can respond. Eric?
I was curious about the awning location, specifically when we were down looking at kind of that gravel portion. The footings that the awning sits on looked relatively modern versus the rest of the building. Were there any previous permitted work that was done? It looked to me as if it was, possibly within the last 15 years or so, certainly within the purview of the Wetland Protection Act. And I would just...
The only records that I have that I found was when the tanks were taken out a few years back. I think that was maybe 2018 or 2019. That's all that I could find within our records.
And was the awning in there at that point?
I believe so. I don't know. I never went back there and looked at it, but I mean, I did go back and look at some aerial photos after your comments there on site, and it does look like there's been something back there. It's really hard to tell with some of the historic photos what it is exactly, but I think it would have to be looked at a little bit better.
Okay.
And maybe we could look at building permit records.
Yeah, it looked a lot newer than the rest of the property, so I'm just concerned that, if it wasn't permitted work, if it's something that we need to make sure we address as part of this process. And just, to your point, I understand that compacted gravel is basically serving as asphalt, but it's not asphalt, and I don't know that an 18-inch strip is going to be sufficient to kind of, to handle that sheet flow that's going to happen down that hill. So I would think that we would want, if there was going to be an approval of that, we'd want to see something a little bit, or at least I would like to see something more robust than 18 inches of rock that's likely going to be washed out and going to be not necessarily maintained to the O&M plan as much as we'd like to. So I think it's something a little bit more robust I'd like to see is when you come back with any adjustments.
I second that.
Anything else? Roy?
Nope, nothing further. I like Eric's comments.
Ted?
Ed, I'm going to be abstaining from this conversation and vote. I have a personal challenge with the owner based on a conversation that I experienced with him at the Cracker Barrel one morning, which almost led me to have to go to the police department. I don't want to get into it any more than that. Happy to talk to Mr. Moran on the side, but I'm not comfortable being able to remove my personal opinion at this time.
Okay. And question for Mr. Moran, is what they're talking about with the awning, was that from the tornado? Was that repairs? Wasn't that building damaged in the tornado?
Certainly was. It was $100,000 worth of damage.
Yeah, so.
All new roofs, all new heating systems, all new electrical. The back shed, the roof was torn off, had to be replaced.
Yeah.
It was quite a lot.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm not answering the question, I'm just,
Yeah. Oh, well, and that would make sense, because it was 2011, right? 2010?
Much pretty well.
Yeah. Was that done, that still must have been done under an NOI, right? Even though it was tornado damage or no?
I don't know.
I wasn't here at that time, so I
can't answer the question.
don't know. I'm sure there was a lot of emergency approvals granted at the time.
Permits from when that work was done, or anything that you could bring to the next meeting? That would just be helpful, just so I can be aware of it anyway.
I think there may have been a blanket kind of approval to make repairs. From Mass DEP.
Any documentation would be helpful, just so I can review it.
I think I may have something.
Okay, caught everybody. Back to you.
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of circle back. Becky had mentioned two things, two kind of resource area-wise issues. So the bordering land subject to flooding, it's an interesting kind of aspect because we've got an Army Corps easement, so you get an elevation based upon the downstream dam, so that's kind of justifies where exactly the bordering land subject to flooding is because it's a Zone A.
All right, we should verify that, because I know not all Army Corps easements might correspond with that potentially. So I think we should just verify that. You can just, in your narrative back, just verify that.
I can check with Keith.
And then the other thing I just wanted to mention, we talked about, Scott Jordan did the delineation, flagged a section of where there was kind of flow coming into the ponded area. Kind of keep in mind too, that any of these areas, even if this riverfront area were to change slightly, it's all previously degraded areas, so it's existing pavement or existing gravel areas, so,
Right, it might not have a
there's no
significant
reason
impact on
to get entrenched in, figuring out exactly where that is if there's an issue, but we'll take a look at it. We can provide some documentation, kind of going back.
Yeah, I mean, it is.
Where the channel used to be,
Yeah.
we might be able to just overlay
Right,
that.
I don't think you need to get into the weeds about it, but it is a resource area verification, and that's part of the approval project, and if it's work within riverfront area, we still have to go through that process, even if, right, it's something that could be approved because of the way the current conditions are, which is likely.
All right.
Just one more thing,
Continuation?
Do you mind?
What? Go ahead.
One more thing.
Yeah.
Just from a clarification standpoint, like, that gravel kind of goes from the
I think there's a
part of the
line right
building,
there, yeah.
right? So we're listing this as historic pavement. I find it very hard to believe that pavement just kind of broke off in a very straight engineered line. So would it be more appropriate to maybe label that as historical gravel, parking area, and the same thing, it's difficult down around here as well to kind of really see where the line of the pavement was, right? And I tried to kick underneath, and it's compacted, right? I mean, there's no doubt that it's whether it was intended to be impervious or not, it's impervious, right? But I have a hard time believing that there was actual pavement all the way back to the corner of this building, and more the fact that there's compacted gravel there. So I don't know if it's more appropriate to label these things properly, so we can have that documented as we go through the decision process.
Yep, and what we can do, Mr. Chairman, one of the things, as part of our additional work, we can do a little more research and maybe dig a few little test holes, and again, make sure it has the proper labels.
Yeah. Thank you, appreciate it.
All right. So you want a continuation?
Yes.
Yes, please.
Public comment?
Public, anybody like to speak on this in the public? From the public? For the public? By the public? No?
Make a motion to continue the public hearing until January 4th.
Have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none? Ted?
He's abstained.
He's abstaining. Roy?
Agree.
In favor.
In favor.
In favor.
Carson Street.
All right, thank you.
Great, thank you for your time.
All right.
Thank you, folks. Have a good holiday.
Thank you.
So we are now, we're number 3?
Yep.
274 Big Allen Road, notice of intent, repair of an historic boat notch, DEP file number. And Jenny, you don't have a file number, huh?
Right,
Everybody.
yeah, DEP hasn't issued the file number, and just for the record, we do have proof of butter notifications and legal ad receipt. So Jenny, I'll put the sketch up that Mark put together for you, and just let you kind of go over the project, what you're proposing, et cetera.
Okey dokey. Hi, everybody.
So I can go back to some of these when you want me
Sure.
to.
Yep.
We'll start with this one. Maybe we'll 10 minutes.
Okay, so originally back in September, I applied directly to DEP, thinking this was a simple, limited shoreline water flow repair. And I did ask Becky for some input. She was good enough to come up and give me the input on, no, let's see, what was that, October 16th. And it was at that point that I learned that it really was something under the Sturbridge bylaws for limited mitigation, restoration, and preservation project. I thought it was going to be a very simple, minor fixing shoreline. This was actually a boathouse that goes back as far as at least 1923. And I think Becky can probably pull up the DEP map from 1923.
That was in your packet, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I do have a copy of one of the originals, which is full size. I can pass that along. You have to have a magnifying glass, but it's really good if you can find us. I'm over here. Right there's the boat notch. Right there is the family name. It's been in our family, the Rice family, since 1909. DEP did a sounding, 6,000 hand-done soundings back in 1923, and that's, the boat notch was drawn in there, and that's to scale. Additionally, back in 1943, which that is what Becky has up there now, is part of a lot plan done by Norman Leathers, engineer. I do have the whole lot plan here that shows those parcels, and again, does show the old boathouse. Becky, maybe you want to flip to another one, because that just shows where the boathouse begins. This is the whole plan.
Can you show me where we're looking at this?
Sure.
I'm sorry, I just want,
Here's the lake,
got that. I can
and
see.
here's the boat notch.
Okay, all right.
So I own these two parcels. You'll note on the agenda there was some
Jenny.
question.
Right there.
From the assessor's office of ownership, the town GIS maps are incorrect. I don't own 151 feet, I own 202 feet. Whether or not you add the 70 feet of the shoreline of the notch, which would make it 272, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure either, but
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
When did the boathouse disappear?
Very good question. There are pictures. I think we talked about Uncle George.
I saw that, but from
You saw the photo. So that was in the 1930s. It was used for a girls' camp from 1929 to 1934. I have pictures of it still standing in the 1950s. The roof had blown off before that. The first level had been all stone, and that's what this picture depicts, is the stone that has fallen in. So what you're looking at, or what you saw on the site visit, was actually the dilapidated structure with some sediment and leaves and whatever that had fallen in.
Do we have anything close to when the Wetland Protection Act was approved? Because, I mean, you claim it's probably grandfathered in.
It is.
So then the question is, was the boathouse there at the time?
The boathouse was there at
Or
least,
was it already naturalized at that point? Because if the boathouse wasn't there, it's not grandfathered in.
good question. It was there until at least mid-1950s.
So,
So it wasn't there.
So I'm not looking
It wasn't
to,
there when the
No.
Wetland Protection
Wetland
Act was.
Protection Act was 66.
right, okay. I'm not looking to rebuild the boathouse. I'm just looking to restore the shoreline and clean up the debris that's fallen in.
But if that was already fallen in, then
The
the shoreline
rocks.
is very different at the time of 66.
I don't know. I do not know when the water levels changed. I can show you pictures of where the water levels are now and the depth of the water levels when there's water, the high water time you saw it when it was low water. So Becky, that's pictures in the group 2 pictures that I sent you.
The emailed pictures?
Yes.
So we just, I don't know, we have them just saved here, so,
Okay.
I mean, I can go through them.
If there's water in them, it was during the high water time.
Yeah, we can just go through them if you want to show them. Just gonna have to zoom
These are
in.
small.
Okay, that specific picture was taken on October 17th, day after you were there. That shows the debris, some of the debris that, you can see some of the boards that are in there from the old boathouse. The old boathouse had 2 floors. Top floor was wooden, bottom floor, or where the boats were parked inside, that was the stone portion. So what you can see is actually some remaining lumber that I had picked out. So that particular picture is again from the 17th, before I did any raking or picking any of this stuff out. So that was the day after Becky was there.
Do you want me to go to the next?
Sure.
So this is looking from the lake inland.
Correct. You can see the stone wall, the original shoreline wall on the right. You all saw it the other day. And that's what the vegetation looked like. On the 17th, Becky was there on the 16th. You want to flip?
Yep. Yeah, just let me know when you want me to move.
Okay, high water time. That is inside where you saw the raft stored. That's 24 inches or more of water right there that comes in.
Next.
Sure. That picture was taken on October 23rd, before the drawdown of the lake. Again, if you look carefully, you can see there's actually water. I don't know how to use a pointer anyway. There's actually water where you can see those holes and stuff.
In here.
Yeah. The water comes in under whatever is on top and draws in and out whatever goes in and out. When I cleaned up debris, I found glass, I found G.I. Joe, I found plastic, I found cotton goods, I found an oil bottle, a plastic oil bottle, lots of plastic pieces, everything that I wrote in my narrative. Bolts, roof shingles, anything, styrofoam, anything that floats in from the lake. Do you want to?
Yep.
Okay, there you go. Before I even picked it out, there's styrofoam, some kind of can. I think when you were there, I had a trash can there. A lot of the stuff I just threw in there. I still have it if you want to see what it was. But as the boat wakes, that is a picture of it from August, I believe. Let me see. September 9th. So I want you to see that around the perimeter, there is no growth. There is nothing that was disturbed. The rowboat there is mine, underneath that is a sailboat. So we have walked around it. I know I said to Becky that we had mowed on occasion. There wasn't enough sun this year that there was anything to mow over there. So, what I'm looking to do is just restore that, pull out all the junk that's in there, the rocks from the foundation of the boathouse and the first floor, and let the water flow again. It's a previously disturbed area, and anything we do there to clean it out will certainly improve the protection of the entire resource area. It's not a replication, it's a reclamation. It's not an adverse activity. There's no adverse impact, I don't think, to the lake. And once it's completed, we'll protect it and preserve it. And there'll be clear water flow in and out. Fish can go in and out. Whatever critters there are can go in and out. DEP has seen the application and pictures. There was the assistant director, I think her name was Christine Hobbs, reached out to me. She'd be more than welcome to sit down, speak with everybody, or on a phone call, Zoom meeting, whatever. But she sees no issues with it. Again, we know that.
Right, that's for the, Chapter 91 license.
Right.
For the waterways part of it, for the ownership aspect, yeah.
Right.
So the claim is that this part here was really never dug out, but this was the original shoreline, so that nature somehow conveniently created this kind of rectangle so that you could build a...
No. Whoever or whenever they did it, I do not know.
But so this is not...
But my family owned it since 1909. It was definitely there in 1923.
But so this is not the original shoreline, this is a man-made kind of construction.
I would guess so. It looks like it.
Yeah.
So it's not a restoration of the original shoreline, but a restoration of a man-made structure.
Okay.
Right? I mean, so...
But at that time, it was a shoreline all the way up until now.
Man-made, yeah. I mean, it sounds as if you do nature a favor in restoring the shoreline if you express it that way, while it seems to be... I mean, look...
It's been a banking for decades.
Look, from my perspective, you could say this is the nature just reclaimed.
Okay.
What belonged to it, and so this is the shoreline.
We all have, yeah.
There are nice rocks now, and... So the question is whether it's grandfathered in or it isn't. So the question is what was there in 1966, in some sense.
I was,
because
okay, I'm not going to tell you how old I was, but yeah.
Because otherwise it's actually disturbance, right? It's otherwise a disturbance of the 25 feet zone, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's one way of looking at it.
Resource area as well.
So if it's not grandfathered in, then this is the shoreline, and all these rocks would be disturbance of the shoreline.
We've had the reverse, too, on Big Allen, where the applicant comes in and they want to fill the old, it's just like that. It's a, it's a, goes in, goes over, they dug it, it was dug out, and they had the boats in, and they wanted to fill it, and we wouldn't let them do it.
So that's the alternative.
Yeah.
Do I fill it?
Yeah.
Why not just let it be? Nature is working
Because you're getting all kinds of debris from the lake washing in there, plastic, leftover worm containers from people fishing, lures, all kinds of garbage. What do I do?
But don't you get that here too?
No. It doesn't get caught. It doesn't seem to get stuck. It's getting stuck in the walls that have fallen in.
So I think what's important is to show meeting performance standards for the resource areas that are being impacted. So technically the area of the old boathouse here, we do have the water coming in here. There's still, it's land underwater, that's a resource area.
Yeah.
The shoreline wall here, you know, a lot of that, I mean, when you get back to this back portion, which is a lot of earthen material, I guess there would be a question of where that is, but it would be considered bank as the resource area, and you've got to show to meet standards on that too. So I think that's what's important to be able to move forward with the project, is to really show meeting these performance standards under the bylaw and the Wetlands Protection Act to move forward. But right, I agree that, you know, it was something in the past, historic, that isn't necessarily there. It hasn't been maintained. Like if the boathouse was there and, or just the walls were there, and, you know, we have a lot of historic shoreline walls where people come in, they're still considered bank, and they got to go through the process to show that and demonstrate. You know, we look at when these walls come in that are, you know, concrete or block walls or mason stone, how can we make that better? How can we make that better for the interests of the Wetlands Protection Act that bank serves? So we really look at, can we, you know, look at something more naturalized? So taking away the naturalized and going back to the shoreline wall might not be a benefit that meets all of the interests that bank serves there potentially. So that's really where I think the conversation needs to come back, and applicants really need to demonstrate how, showing that they're meeting performance standards for it too. Does that make sense?
Okay, no, I agree.
Okay.
The other thing, the only other thing that concerns me is that within that boathouse now, there is a solid foundation from the boathouse.
Right.
And that cannot be removed, because that would be dredging the lake. So I would, yeah, I would agree with Becky that, you know.
Well, I think the definition of dredging.
Don't go look for the definition of
Okay.
dredging. My definition of dredging.
Okay.
You know, if you take out of it, you're removing it. If you know, so that's, leave it at that.
Okay.
But, Roy, you got anything? I think Roy went. Roy?
I think you might have been on mute.
No, nothing? Ted?
My only comments are, I understand why the applicant wants to do what they want to do. It's also a safety hazard there, that soft material over the stones.
Right.
I don't know if she's got children, grandchildren, but there's definitely some exposure to safety the way it sits today. I agree, Ed, that any permanent structures that were there should remain there, but you know, to
Oh no, did we lose everybody?
Unplugged.
you know, go through the process, let's justify it, and I think if the project's done right, it's a positive for the lake and the property owner as well. And I guess, Carson, I kind of see this as lakefront. I mean, it's all lake frontage. Once you have water going in and out of it, it's part of the shoreline.
Yeah.
I did have a couple of things, Ed.
Go ahead.
So I'm just curious, there's some, because you asked, I read through all of the documents. And there's capitalized words in here, and I'm curious as to what basis you have to make the statement, this is not an adverse activity with no adverse impact. Do you have the engineering and wetland science background to make that statement? What is that based off of?
I can't imagine what the adverse impact would be, and if someone can tell me what that might be, I'd like to hear it.
Well, it's not for me to say. That's where an engineered plan, with somebody overviewing it, might be
It's
beneficial.
too minor a project to even consider.
Well, and that's the other thing. The definition of a limited project, you know, that this seems a little bit more robust than what I would consider a limited project. And Becky seemed to agree with that assessment as well.
Yeah, you gotta look at what's listed for the limited project under the state act and the bylaw.
Right.
Right, and I did look at that. Is it okay for me to speak?
Go ahead, yeah.
Under 365, 3-5-year limited projects, if we go down to section C, number 7, the maintenance, repair, and improvement of structures which existed on April 8th, 1983. Is that what you were speaking of, Carson?
No, yeah.
When water levels are drawn down for maintenance, repair, or improvement, that's acceptable. Construction and maintenance of boathouses, boat shelters, to permit the reasonably unobstructed flow of water. Those are the things I was looking at.
But
Like I said-
there really is no boathouse at the moment, and you would have to come in with heavy equipment. It's not just like maintaining a yard where you just throw out some stones. I mean, the stones were pretty bad.
Oh, I think
So you come with diggers in there, and you dig up the whole area, and
my question to you would be, how does everyone else repair their shoreline walls? Under what bylaw is that?
Well, they usually aren't in that condition where you have that much material that's on the land underwater that people are removing out, as well as the stones too. So there's kind of two parts to the project. So if someone came in and had a shoreline wall that they need to repair, depending on the extent of what repair is, would kind of trigger what would need to be filed. If it's a replacement, that's where we look at, all right, well, this is bank, this is a resource area. Instead of putting in a block wall or concrete poured wall or anything of that nature, what can we do to make that better for the resource area in the interest it serves, wildlife, habitat, et cetera. And that's where maybe you've seen where some of these kind of, I think there's been a few on Big Allen, but on Cedar Lake, working with, you know, trying to naturalize those areas to the extent you can. And in some situations, we've been successful in being able to do that. There are limiting factors sometimes. You know, one property had a structure right behind it, so they just replaced the wall. Different things of that. So you can get approval to do that. But those are resource areas, and that's kind of part of the process of that. But yours is a little more different because it's really hasn't been maintained for so long that, right, it's kind of naturalized. And now we've got the, you know, you'd be pulling all of that stuff out to land underwater and working on bank. So if you.
Okay, which would
you
be,
gotta
obviously
kinda
now
sell it
where
to-
it's nice and dry, but probably you and I should speak then, and you can guide me on what you're saying would be appropriate to ask for.
I
think that's exactly.
Along those lines, right, and just one more thing. I'm just curious as to the rationale, like, there were pictures when Becky was out there that was undisturbed, and we knew that there was gonna be a site visit. It seemed like it was a aggressive act to go in there and do the clean out, knowing that we were doing a site visit, so we weren't able to see kind of the naturalized, just seemed like an odd choice to make, given that we, you know, we're evaluating this project, and it would have been nice for me to be able to go in and see it as it was, but as it was, when I got there, I saw, you know, and I know it's not 2 inches, but there was a 1-inch root that was cut, which is to a much larger tree, so we're damaging, you're not having a 1-inch root on a 2-inch tree, right? And so that damaged something else, and you come in front of us, I'll assume you're coming in good faith, saying, I raked out stuff, but those roots weren't damaged by a rake, right?
No.
So I'd be interested, you know, I would just ask, you know, as part of this
What was
process,
I
that you would
thinking?
operate with us in good faith, because we're trying to operate with you in good faith. And that seemed a very adversarial step to make to me, given that Becky had alerted you that we were going to need to do a site visit, so we weren't able to kind of fully evaluate the project as it was. So that was my only other comment.
I would like to respond to that. I think that's kind of harsh. During a lake drawdown, it is common practice for everyone on the lake to clean up their shorefront. And that's exactly what I did, and I believe you were the person that almost fell through, walking through.
No, that was fine.
Well, I think I cautioned you for safety's sake, be careful. Because when there's
That was
water
me.
there, you can fall through.
I'm just saying, you know, we clearly, this was clearly in the
Because
works.
I
just-
totally understood it to be okay to do, to rake along the shoreline.
Right, and I understand raking, but there were roots cut, that did not happen.
Okay.
The root damage didn't happen with the rake.
No, and I told you I did cut it.
Let's cut it off there.
We're an hour
So you
behind
get-
here.
Go ahead, Ted, what?
I just, you know, we do this to ourselves all the time. I think we've given good guidance, 7:15.
Yeah.
We're an hour behind. We don't have DEP numbers,
Well, that's what I'm trying to do. You're,
you know, so I'd like to move along.
but,
Is that a motion for continuance, Ted, to the 4th of January? If it is, I'll second it.
If the applicant wants that.
I've
Eric,
got to
I
have
can't
public
accept
comment
it.
first.
Yeah.
Oh, public comment. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Anybody in the audience like to speak on this issue? Seeing none? Okay, go ahead.
I'd like to second Ted's motion for the continuance until January 4th.
You have a second?
A second to a second?
There you go. Perfect.
Yeah. Discussion, I'd like continuation between you and Becky to move forward. I think the only practical way would be to entertain this as a wall, a part of the lake. You know, the shape happens to be something they built to put a boathouse on.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a boat notch anymore, as far as I'm concerned. It's a wall along the lake.
Okay.
And if you handle it that way, that would be I think, the most judicious way to get there.
I appreciate it. Thank you for your help.
Yeah.
I'd agree with that.
All in favor?
Eric Gaspar in favor?
Carsten Stuber in favor?
Ted Windlass in favor.
For Bishop in favor.
Right. Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
All right, we are now to Big Alum, notice of intent for pond aquatic vegetation management, DEP file number. We're not entertaining anybody without a file number tonight? Everybody hasn't had a file number, so.
Just for the record, we have
scared there a little bit.
proof of butter notifications in legal ad receipt for the public hearing to open.
Right.
So I will hand these out before I start. These are actually, I'm going to get to these. These are reports from the consultant that we received. Unfortunately, we received them after the package was put together. So
Okay.
luckily with the continuance, it's natural that I guess this would be something would be reviewed in that time. So unfortunately, we didn't get it earlier, but it seems like with the continuance, it ends up working out like that.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. So Ted, Roy, we'll get this information to you for the next meeting, and also for the public, we'll post this on the website for the
Thank you, sir.
materials.
No problem.
Perfect.
And the map you got is just, you know, one of the excerpts from the same report there. So my name is AJ Reyes. I'm an aquatic ecologist and certified lake manager working with GEI Consultants. Our firm was hired on behalf of the Big Alum Lake Association to file a NOI to receive an order of condition to continue aquatic plant management activities on Big Alum Pond. Big Alum Pond for the last, I believe it's been very consistently over the past decade, has been managing their aquatic vegetation, both invasive and native vegetation, using a combination of techniques, particularly drawdowns and aquatic EPA-registered aquatic herbicide treatments. The Big Alum Association would like to continue this practice. The last order of conditions, stipulated that Dicot reward would be used throughout the entire lake. This request is a little bit different in the light of different changing conditions within the reservoirs and within all lakes, and I can expand upon that if you would like. The association would request a more flexible approach to managing aquatic vegetation, with the idea that basically at the end of the year, all the information gathered on the reservoir and in the NOI, we do recommend a aquatic plant survey to be submitted, all the information to be submitted to the Conservation Commission to either stick with the particular plan that was approved the previous year or to adjust it. And what that means is adjust either the total amount of herbicide that's being used, adjust the areas that are being treated, the target species, the timeline, all the information that unfortunately at this particular time we cannot forecast into the future in terms of what's going to be there. The maximum acreage we expect to be treated is about 40 acres. That's kind of what's been treated in the past. The total disturbance area, we're considering that to be the littoral zone of the lake, which for anyone not familiar, that's all the acreage in the lake that plants can potentially grow in, so where the light can usually reach the bottom and there's suitable sediment for that to happen. That's about 75 acres, but once again, we anticipate a maximum to be 40 acres in a particular year. So the reports you show there, and I separated out this one large map to show you, this is sort of, I think, what you can expect to be submitted at the end of the year, along with the sort of treatment reports that happen from the selected contractor that's going to be doing the surveys and the certified Massachusetts applicator that's going to be performing them. So that's for the submersed applications. You know, we listed 3 potential active ingredients based on what we've seen in the lake currently. However, you know, that list is not exhaustive. There are other active ingredients that could be used just depending on what comes into the lake. For example, you know, Eurasian water milfoil, fanwort, those are 2 really, really difficult to control invasive species that those 3 products would not be able to control. And in the event that, you know, unfortunately, you know, we hope this isn't the case, but in the event that that species is introduced into Big Alum, you know, we would like the order of conditions to reflect a pathway to be able to deal with that without having to file a whole new filing to deal with that species. You know, dealing with invasive species is a time-sensitive issue, and especially for those 2. So that's sort of the spirit of how we wanted to approach this this strategy. And then we also are asking for 2 other techniques. One is a continuous of the annual drawdown that happens on the lake. The idea is we're going to draw down, or not, I shouldn't say the we, but Big Alum Association is going to be drawing down the lake every year, at least to the 30-inch mark, following all standards from Massachusetts in terms of drawing it down slow enough to let amphibians be able to move if they need to, refilling it at a slow enough rate as well to minimize any ecological impacts. In the years ending in 0 and 5, the drawdown will be extended to 36 inches. This is a pretty common practice to have a sort of staggered, slightly deeper drawdown and a shallower drawdown to allow repair of shorelines and so on. The last potential action, and I will say potential, is emergent plant treatment. And I should note that all of this is happening in the land under waterways, lands underwater resource area. So emergent treatments, if that comes up, and the Big Alum Association does not anticipate that to happen currently, but if it does, in terms of, let's say, there's an invasive emergent plant such like Phragmites or purple loosestrife that shows up on the shoreline, the association would like the ability to potentially treat it. And the idea is that that would be used, that would be treated also with an EPA-registered herbicide. The application details with that is that if the stand of invasive or nuisance plants that is to be treated is under 200 individual plants, the certified applicator will use a technique called hand wicking, where they basically take a really thick chemical glove, they dip their hand with a sponge that has the active product on it, and they individually wipe the plants. The idea here is that usually when you spray aquatic vegetation using a wand, you are going to get drift and you are going to get non-target impacts. So, in the event that we can potentially limit that, we would like to do that. So that's why the hand wicking. Unfortunately, once you get over 200 plants, it becomes pretty infeasible to sort of hand wick every single particular stem. So that in an event where it's over 200, they would use a sort of a backpack spraying method to deal with those invasive or nuisance species. So I'll take any questions that you have.
Nick, did you want to go first, or?
Sure. So first, thank you. I know it's been a lot of work for the Lake Association, and they work really hard to, manage the lake, and it's a lot of work and effort and cost that goes into that. So it is appreciated that you've come forward and improved the management plan to reflect what needs to be done for the lake. And I like the approach. It's something that we talked about, getting away from the plan that had one specific brand chemical for one plant species is kind of opening that permit up so it can tackle what needs to be done out there. I think that's important. But I think the part that we need to look at, and I know you provided all this information tonight, is that this permit has to kind of like be the umbrella. So all of the options and kind of dosage amounts that would be anticipated is kind of what they have to review at this time. So maybe, and we have to look at this information, but a little more information about what would be anticipated based off of what you know is happening out there. So we can say, okay, this would be the most of dosage amounts we would anticipate for this. I think for the permitting part, they have to kind of have just a little bit more detail, and that can change every year. But at least figuring out what like that max amount might be for that particular species and kind of detailing it that way, because we can't, say that you're gonna, go in and put 100,000 gallons of a chemical in. If they've already issued the permit and you come back with the information each year that you need to tackle something, well, that wasn't really reviewed at that time. So it has to be something that kind of fits under the umbrella of what would be reviewed. So a little bit more about that, I think, would go a long way to be able to create that flexible plan.
Sure.
And make sure that they're evaluating, the purpose of their reviews to make sure that even though this is, for an ecological project for a benefit, that there wouldn't be any adverse impacts to any other resource areas. If you go in with a certain amount of chemical, you could kill off different aquatic organisms, fish, things like that. So just defining that a little bit better, I think would help create this plan and give that flexibility.
Can I, just procedural, do I respond now or do I let it run?
You can go ahead and respond now.
Sure. So we can definitely do that. One thing that's important to mention is that every time that certified applicators apply, they have to apply via the federal label on each of these herbicides, which is approved not only by the federal government but also by the state of Massachusetts. So we can definitely provide those dosage informations. The question I would have for the Conservation Commission: would it be acceptable to provide the recommended label additions or what the actual applicator may potentially use? I would ask maybe for the former because the association was not going to know exactly who's going to be applying the herbicide and so on.
I think that's fine. I think my more thought on that, and you can add in as well, is like the amount of chemical usage. Like we just had the alum treatment in South Pond, and we knew the amount of material they're going to put in. Granted, it was a one-time thing, but we knew, and based off that, they could evaluate. All right, they had some case studies that showed that amount wouldn't have impacts. It was done in other places. I think that's the intent that I'm trying to get at. I think.
So, I just to answer your question from my point of view, it kind of has to be both, and you probably know what it might be, and then if it gets changed, we'd want to know that.
Changed on the federal level or changed on what the association would like to apply?
What they're using.
Yeah.
In other words, I understand, the premise, but that's a pretty big change.
But are you asking, so instead of saying reward, you're saying use the main chemical compound in reward? That way you can use different brand labels?
Well, it's more about, so the federal labels, inside of them, they stipulate the usage rates, right? So the amount of product that can go into the water, that's allowed to go into the water, that's effective for particular items. So the question would be, would it be sufficient to supply the CONCOM with basically all the labels for every product that we could even use? And we can even expand it beyond the ones that I've listed for the idea that a new invasive species comes in. And would that be acceptable? Because by law, the applicators can't even go above that anyway, right? They can't go beyond that particular amount. Or would you want, maybe the answer is then a hybrid approach, is that up front we provide all the labels for every single product that could be used, but at the end of each individual year, when the treatment plan is decided upon, then we provide the dosages for that particular item. So for example, in 2 years, if we decide that Floridone is the product that we want to use, we say, all right, we're going to treat with 20 acres, that's going to take 100 pounds of product, let's say, and that's going to achieve an in-lake concentration we expect of 4 parts per billion, right? That's the year by year. information that's given, but the Concom knows from, you know, the labels that that number is not going to have adverse impacts.
I think we can look at that. I think
I
we
got-
can get us the label
I'm
information.
confused by that.
Well, I think the hard part about that, I think what he's saying is that, you know, if there's limitations on what you can do with that. However, right, it's by acre of use maybe, and that would be the amount of chemical that's used. So if it's 1 acre and you can use 30 gallons, I'm just saying that, then it's 30 gallons. But if it's 100 acres, then it's obviously a lot more.
Right.
Is there any way of kind of knowing a little bit more to a degree? Like, we know where some of these problem target areas are. You know, it wouldn't anticipate more than 20 acres or something like that, that then you could know the rate amount. I guess that's doesn't have to be decided right now. I think that's,
Doesn't have to be decided
Yeah.
right now.
I just,
But, go ahead, what were you gonna say?
I mean, the federal law defines what you can use and regards this as being safe, right?
Safe for adverse impacts, as long as the applicator is doing their job correctly, which is the crux of any of this.
So why do we need more specific information? You can't go beyond what the federal law allows, and that's supposed to be safe.
Yeah, but I mean, so at the end of the day, we would still provide the Concom with exactly the amount of product that we anticipate to be used. So, you know, it's still a double check on those dosages for what happens in the particular year. But, you know, the idea is that the label provides you like the high threshold, right? You know that you can't put in X amount of product in that many acres, but then there's going to be an individual plan based on what the particular companies see.
and it would always be lower than that.
Yes.
Top threshold amount. I think that would be useful, would be very useful.
We can provide that
Yeah.
directly.
I think that would help kind of narrow that down, so you know you're looking at, it wouldn't be more than that max amount, and you can evaluate it at that amount and give that flexibility to go under, but not over.
Yes.
I think that's the important thing, I think.
As I read through it, you know, basically what you're looking to do is to not necessarily be given a blank check. Just be able to be nimble enough to deal with something before it becomes a big problem.
Yes.
And what you're concerned with is that blank check being written as part of this permitting process. So is there, you know, it would seem to me, Carson's point of, you know, if we're comfortable with the federal regulations and what they put in place as the worst case scenario or the acceptable level, I think we're covered for both. You know, the only question would be if you don't provide us a sheet for a treatment, then we're gonna need to review that as part of, you know, probably a minor change if there's an additional product that needs to be used, right? But that would be the only thing that we would probably need to see through, you know, going forward.
Yeah, and I think it'd depend on
Thank
what.
God you have a lot of trust in our government, huh?
Oh, I have none, but,
I know that, that's what.
I'm saying the global we, if we're comfortable with the federal regulations, if we're comfortable.
But, you know, from my point of view, I understand his need for flexibility, but we, at a point, have to have knowns as to what's happening with the lake, and even in the past tense, because, you know, what are you gonna use to treat milfoil with?
Which products?
Yeah.
You can use fluoridone diquat, you can use Priscillacor, you could use, there's a whole bunch, but it depends on
That's
site
my
conditions
point.
and how much.
That's my point. We wanna know which one you're using.
So would I be allowed to respond to that?
Sponsor it, what?
Respond to what you just
Yeah, go
said.
ahead.
So the idea to answer that question and to sort of push back against the blank check idea is the treatment summaries and the requests that are going to be submitted at the end of each year, which I understand could be a minor change. So the idea is that coming into each year, the Conservation Commission is going to know what products are going to be put into the lake and going to have the say to say we think this is acceptable or not. The idea is not to just, grant the blank check and then just do whatever, the association wants. The Concom every single year is going to see, all right, the association with its contractors has decided that Dicquad is the right product and we need to treat 20 acres. That's going to go in front of the group.
So that report is a permission slip, not a history lesson. Right?
Yes.
You're not coming to us and this is what was done. You're coming to us, this is what is going to be done. So then we know it.
Then we know it.
Then we know it.
But
So
I
we're
think,
fine.
right, as long
Yeah, but
as,
I think also included in the report, after the distribution of the chemicals, they ought to send back, we used 20 gallons or 100 pounds, so that they attest that they haven't exceeded the federal level.
Right. So we'd get both.
That closes the loop each
whatever
year.
they're doing is gonna be under that overall permit that we're gonna issue already. It's just, this is the specifics for this year, confirm that it's
Yeah,
accurate
right.
and correct and moving forward.
And also, too, by law, the applicators have to report the total amount of product that they've used on a particular water body to the state. So it may be very simple as to them, however they want to do it in the future, that information is going to be readily available.
Right.
I think it makes
Anybody
sense.
else?
And hopefully by taking this approach, we won't get to the point where we have to use a lot of chemicals, because you'll be tackling it as it comes up versus trying to catch up. You just gotta come up to the mic.
Come up
yeah.
to the mic.
Say your name for the record.
So where we're at right now.
Please give your name.
Say who you
Oh,
are.
We
my
know
name is
who you
Chuck
are,
Roy,
but
I'm
everybody else needs to
president
know.
of Bala Lake Association. And my question is, I have to bid this, and there aren't that many companies that do it. And so I'm trying to get a grip on here. The overall order of conditions is what we're talking about right now. But I do need to get an answer relatively soon about what we do want to do this season. And I'm not sure that I'm hearing that we have that permission yet. Do we have to come in front again?
So DEP has to first issue a file number in order for us to move forward. So that hasn't happened, so you have to come back to another meeting, which we should have that by the next meeting, hopefully. But I think that as far as the specifics, what you want to bid for this year, I think you guys have the information to be able to put the plan together for this year, which would be under the bigger umbrella permit, right?
So you need to see, we'll have that plan. Carl Nielsen is our lake manager, and he's put together that plan, and I can get that to you. Does that mean that we have to come in front of this body again in another month?
Yes.
Or
Yeah,
can
if
you
can
do
it
that?
now, if you can include it now for this year's treatment underneath the umbrella permit we're talking about, then I think that's fine.
Yeah, considering we have Carl's report already, I think that's
Yeah.
perfectly reasonable.
Yeah. That's not a problem, but we don't have a DEP file number, so you do have to come before us again.
Right.
One
I
more
think-
time?
One more time, yes.
Get that information too.
You really like doing that.
What's that?
You really like doing that, right?
Oh, yeah, well, absolutely.
So
I've been here a lot. Okay, I just was, because I do have to bid it, and I have to put it out to Solitude and to ponds and lakes and whatever, and, we're just about into January, and I know it seems like a long way away, but it's not, so, if we can use Carl's plan and get it, to you, and after we get the number that you're talking about, from the,
So I do a lot of the bidding with other of my private clients, and there's ways to do it without having an exact number. There's plenty of ways we can assist in that way, yeah.
okay, I just wanted to try to verify that in my own mind. Thank you.
Helpful to have the person too that's doing the dam.
Oh, yeah, there was just one thing in the notes, and I think we'd add that as a condition, is that whoever's responsible for the lowering of the dam, we'll just need to work with them a little bit more. We're doing this with Cedar Lake too, just because it is a town structure, just to make sure they understand, and they understand that they know the flow rates to come out and everything. We could just add that as a condition each year, that we're notified who it is. We'll talk to them, make sure they understand the parameters.
Anybody in the audience like to speak on this?
I'd like to make a motion to continue the public hearing until January 4th.
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none? All in favor?
Eric Gaspar in favor?
Carsten Stuber in favor?
Edwin Glass in favor.
Roy Bishop in favor.
Ed Goodwin in favor. Thank you very
Right,
much.
thank you very much for your time.
You better have that number next time.
Yeah, we actually have somebody.
So,
We are at number 5. Do you want me to read it, or you got it?
beg your pardon?
Do you want me to?
No, I can
Okay.
read it. 72 Paradise Lane, continued notice of intent, construction of a cantilevered dock. We do not have a file number, so that will be continued.
No, you have the old version of the agenda before we posted it. So this number 5 is 595 Main Street and
okay.
Route 20 right-of-way. This is a continued notice of intent, DOT Route 20 Drainage Project, DEP file number 300-1175. So we do have Luke on here representing the project. I'll pass it over to you in a second here, Luke, just quickly. We had to continue this out a few meetings. There was DEP comments. They had some specific questions that the project team replied to. We did get those back for our October 26th meeting. So we've had those for a little while. Those were provided in a previous packet. I went through them at that time. It appears they worked to address the comments. The only thing we were waiting for was the property owner signature, because the easement hasn't been granted on that property to DOT. We were able to secure that, so we are in a position to move forward and vote if the commission's comfortable. My recommendation is, I went through it, I feel comfortable with it. This is a project that we've been looking for DOT. It's a failed drainage structure. It'll be a good improvement, and I made some recommendations for you in there.
Okay, you're talking about 595?
Yeah, Luke, is there anything you want to add for the board?
No, that was great. You covered everything exactly how I was hoping to do it myself. That's.
Any discussion?
Can approve.
Yep, can approve 590.
Sounds good.
Anybody in the audience like to speak on it? Seeing none?
I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Eric Gaspar in favor?
Carsten Stuber in favor?
Edwin Glass in favor.
Roy?
Roy Bishop in favor.
And Ed Goodwin in favor. Now,
With regards to the project at 595 Main Street and Route 20, DEP file number 300-1175, I'd like to make a motion to approve the project with the agent's notes for standard operating conditions, perpetual conditions, and all the other things laid out in the detailed agenda.
Second.
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 Yep. Having a second discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Eric Gaspar in favor?
Carsten Stuber in favor?
Edwin Glass in favor.
Roy Bishop in favor.
And Ed Goodwin in favor. Great.
Thank you, Luke.
Yep.
All right, thank you all.
Thank you. Where do you want to go now? Back, do you want to do,
Thanks, Luke. So we have just one more that's like a quick definitive continuation, and the rest are already written continuations, so we'll be with you guys in a couple of minutes. All right. So next we have 6. This is 200 Haines Street. This is a continued local notice of intent, construction of a solar facility. And we do have Adrian on here. Just for a quick summary for anyone watching, this has been continued. We did have a site visit out here last week to take a look at it. There's been a peer review that's been started out here. There was just a little communication issue with the peer reviewer, and he didn't access the southern portion of the site. He's going to work with Adrian to get access and review the resource areas off-site. The project team is working to address the comments that have been received to date, and I believe we'll be working to put something together for the commission, but probably also waiting for the peer review to be completed. Is there anything you want to add, Adrian?
That's correct. I just want to add, we'd like to provide the match line plan to the peer reviewer before he goes out into the field because, you know, the current scale of the plan that's before you is a 1:60 scale, which is, having now seen the site on the site visit, it's a very large site. So fitting the entire thing onto one single page is extremely difficult, but we're going to match it so that we can actually see the location of the southern resource area that's been in question. And we really want to put that in the hands of the peer reviewer before he goes out actually to look for it, so that he is also able to orient himself on the plan to where it is located. And that I was hoping to be able to do today, but I do think we'll be able to do it by the end of the week. And then hopefully next week he can go out and we will collect on that, make sure the abutters are notified of the area. And I'm currently reconciling the peer review report that he's provided against the peer review report for planning board. A lot of the comments on stormwater he carried over from the planning board review, so they're already taken care of on the plan and responded to, which is great. And I'm going to try to get those erosion controls on the updated plan too. So you will only receive one plan from me and the report to follow, and you should be pretty well cleaned up. I'm here tonight to find out if there are any additional questions for the commission, to thank you for coming out to the site visit, and request a continuance to January 4th.
Okay. Do we have any additional questions?
Nope.
Roy, Ted?
Do not.
No, neither. Nope. Seeing none?
All right.
Continuation?
I'd like to make a motion to continue the public hearing regarding 200 Haynes Street until January 4th.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none? Ted, how do you vote?
Me, I vote yes to continue the public hearing till January 4th.
Roy?
In favor.
Okay.
Eric Gaspar in favor.
Carsten Stuber in favor.
And Ed Goodwin in favor. All right, that's Haynes.
Just wants to make sure whether these guys are sleeping. Huh?
Yeah. Throw him a curveball.
What do we want to do
All
next?
The rest of the public hearings are all continuations, and we've already passed their time, so if we could just quickly go through those and do the continuation, then we can
Okay,
get to.
I'll just.
Thank you, commissioners. Have a happy holiday. We'll see you there.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Adrian.
Take
You
care.
too.
Yeah. 72 Paradise Lane. Continued notice of intent, construction of a cantilever, and that, no file number, is being continued to next year.
Yep, written continuation to January 4th.
Do we need, if it was written, do we need to still, all right, I'd like to make a motion that we continue the public hearing until January 4th.
And I second that.
All in favor?
Eric Gaspar in favor.
Carsten Stuber in favor.
Ted?
West in favor.
Roy?
Roy Bishop in favor.
And Ed Goodwin in favor. Okay. Okay, we have 62 Mount Dan Road, continued notice of intent, construction of a cantilevered dock, DEP file number not yet. And that will be continued until January 4th.
I'd like to make a motion to continue the public hearing, 62 Mount Dan Road, until January 4th.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Eric Gaspar in favor.
Carsten Stuber in favor.
Ted Winglass in favor.
Roy?
Roy Bishop in favor.
Ned Goodwin in favor. Now we're on 328 Trail. Continued notice of intent, construction of 2 cantilevered docks and repair of shoreline wall. DEP file number not provided. Continue. Have a motion to continue.
I'd like to make a motion with the project at 328 The Trail that we issue a continuance until the 4th of January.
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Eric Gaspar in favor.
Carsten Stuber in favor.
Ted Winglass in favor.
Roy Bishop in favor.
And Ed Goodwin in favor. 324 The Trail, continued notice of intent, construction of 2 cantilever docks, DEP file number 300, no number. So we are continuing it. Do I have a motion to continue?
I'd like to make a motion to continue the public hearing at 324 The Trail until January 4th.
Second.
Having a second, any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Eric Gaspar in favor?
Carsten Stuber in favor?
Ed Butterworth in favor.
Roy Bishop in favor.
And Ed Goodwin in favor. Excuse me.
Bless you.
All right, we are now at, where do you want to go, Becky?
It's, well, just 212, 216, 226 Charlton
Okay.
Road. This was a postponed hearing, notice of intent, redevelopment of 3 single-family house lots to commercial development, DP file number 300-1172. They were going to continue to postpone that to February 15th of 2024.
Feb 15, huh?
No vote required.
No vote.
No, oh, no vote required, okay.
All right,
We were
next-
just getting up to
15.
speed.
This one's never been opened, right?
15.
Yeah.
All right, so,
Why did they
392
even
Main
bother?
Street.
Here we go. You're up.
Come on up.
Who's talking, am I talking?
yep.
Good evening.
Yep, good evening.
This is like a mess because I'm sick, so I'll stay away from you guys.
Oh, God.
Glenn, you
Right?
sit back here.
Uh,
I know.
anyways,
You sent the DOT home in Oxford last night.
so I have my general liability insurance for the town so we can dig some holes and plant some trees. And hopefully we can finish this up because winter's already here.
It is. Whoop.
I was ready that day that I had my tractor back there.
Dig some holes, huh?
That's good?
All right, so Glenn submitted a revised plan. It was included with the packet for you to look at. Pretty thorough restoration plan to go in back there. Glenn's, we talked about it. He thinks he can still get in and get shrubs, trees in this time of year. A lot of the planting's done. He'd like to get that moving forward. What he was talking about, the liability insurance, because it is on the town property. I worked with the town administrator. They just have to provide that for whoever's gonna be out there doing that work to move that forward. I think it's very thorough. Happy with the restoration plan. One thing he talked about was just the oil dumpster. Yeah, if you wanna talk about that, just,
On the plan,
you want me to pull it up? I can pull it up.
you can please, if you would please, I should say.
I colored it, so that way it was a little easier to see here. Share my screen.
Thank you. If I will.
You like that? Like my colors?
It's beautiful.
Huh? I was having a hard time seeing the line, so I figured.
Make it clear,
She has so many talents.
because the lines on my plan, you had to look pretty hard to see the orange lines, the red lines, and the blue lines, I believe, and the blue lines. So we had is this thing working? There we go. Work. So that is a wetland area. Here's the wetland line. In that area, it does show for 2 red maples. Right now, when we had Levesque Geomatics survey, and there were no saplings in that area. This dot is a soil boring. We did propose 2 red maple saplings in there. That would be 2-inch minimal, 2 to 2.5. These are mostly going to be 2.5 to 3. We already have them. And then there's the bush species that we talked about. I'll go into the 25-foot zone, which is the blue. We did look at, there was 6 saplings in that zone. There was some discussion on how many saplings we need to bring into this wetland 25-foot and then the 50-foot zone. On the plan, we do have in that zone, which is the 0 to 25, presently it shows for 6 red maple and 6 northern red oak. All the bush species, which is witch hazel, American hazel, northern arrowwood, and sweet pepper bush, hay-scented fern. Today was the last day that New England Wetland Plants. They're covering everything today. I just bought the last group or something over near Nichols College, so they're covered. We still have the saplings that we can bring in and then plant the bushes in between. We would space the saplings out in these zones, the wetland and then the 25 and then the 50. The one thing we would ask, there was only, there was only 6 saplings in that 25-foot zone. They're shown on the plan, 8-inch, 8-inch, 10, and it goes on, 14, 10. We would ask that if we have, in that zone is actually 2,983 square feet, we would ask if the commission is inclined to allow us, that we would, because we only had 6 saplings in that area, saplings, trees, we would ask for, that we put 8 in there and not 12, if the commission indulges us. I'm just gonna write that down, and then I'll hear from you. And then on the next zone, which is the yellow zone, 25 to the 50, we had again 9 proposed plantings in there. And on our property, we had, on your property, the town's was 2, 3. And there, we're not sure what to, at this one moment, there was a couple on the, right on the property line. We would ask that we take those that are on a small, someone else's property, in that zone, that we take those, again, 2, 4, 5 bush sapling trees. We would plant them on the town's property. They are sprouting right now, as they did over at next to 9 Holland.
Glenn, sorry to interrupt. I think those are stumps. He's showing the stumps that were cut.
Those are stumps.
Yeah, you're gonna spread things out, right? We're not gonna plant them right where the stumps were,
no, we wouldn't
right?
do anything like that. That's what we're saying. These will all be evenly spread out.
Oh, okay, I thought you were looking at those as the locations to plant things.
No, that's too clustered. We would make this a regular forested area, space them out, space the bushes out, and also do the same in the yellow zone. But again, there might be some indulgence by the board. We did talk, I remember hearing, and I'm not putting words in any agent's mouth at all. I think we might have gotten down to 18 or 20 saplings totally, out of the whole group. We might have discussed that or came across that. Presently on the plan is 25 saplings that were on the plan. And that is purely by looking at the spacing of a 10-foot spacing in the 0 to 25. And
that's how you came up with that number?
From the 25 to the 50, a 10-foot spacing. Normally in forested areas, but this was, we didn't cut all that down. In fact, we're removing exotic invasives as we go through this area also, which we already did some of that. So if there was any reduction, only because of the cost of those saplings, we would ask for, again, 8 in the 0 to 25, and we would ask for, if there's 9 showing in the 25 to 50, and we would ask for 8. We actually showed on a sketch here that I just put together, a 7.
So you're saying how many saplings total is on the plan proposed? 20?
I added 25.
Okay, so 25, and you're saying that was based off of the spacing in that area that could accommodate the trees to appropriately space them. However, the whole area wasn't treed, so you're asking to reduce that overall tree number down to?
It would be 7, 8, and 6. 7, 8, excuse me.
15,
7,
6,
8,
21.
and 2. 7, 8, and 2. 15, 17.
17, but you'd still put the shrubs in there?
And all the density of the shrubs would still go in. We're not, the shrubs we're going to pay from New England Wetland Plants, whatever, the biggest stuff that they have in the spring, because they have covered everything as of today.
Yeah, I mean,
Well, that's what you're asking for?
It's a slight reduction, which is on the plan, but it's more than what we had out there. And also what we had out there, some of that stuff was, there was some arborvitaes, there was some ailanthus. Anything that we come across that is sprouting that's not native, we're not gonna, we would pop that out too.
Yeah. Have a problem with that?
I don't. Could have been faster to get to that, but yes, I
Sorry.
You confused me. You
apologize.
I was thinking the same thing.
I was ready that day you guys came, I would have, it was there, the fact that it was there.
I think that that's an acceptable result for what we're doing here, and I appreciate the work you put into it and your patience, so that's the only
And we like the paint job.
Yeah, it looks fantastic.
Very good. You know how nice that, I'm gonna get on a tangent right now.
No, don't go through that.
I have to do it.
Go quick.
Wait until we vote, and then.
You might turn him off or something like that. Let him,
Yeah, that's fine. I think if you came with 17 trees 5 months ago, they would have approved it too.
Right, yeah.
I think that would have been fine. So I think that's a good compromise here.
Yeah.
Do that, the shrubs.
You're winning.
I know, but I just have to say why it took so long, because there was a lot of teeth pulling from to get Joe, because Joe's so stressed over his head, that it took this long to get even a week ago.
Yeah, we don't-
Plan. Thank you again.
Okay.
I
Why don't we move?
I don't think this is a public hearing we need to close, so I'd like to make a motion to accept the plan with the 17 trees and,
Well, so because it's a restoration that's being required, and there's got to be an avenue to approve it, so it would be like how we've done this under the enforcement orders before.
Yep.
So it'd be enforcement order, sorry, I meant to write out like all of this earlier and I forgot. I think we should establish a timeline for it. He said he can get the trees and shrubs in right now, which is great. Herbaceous stuff, you're gonna have to wait, but figure out a time frame to do the planting. And then typically you just required, just monitoring and reporting to make sure the plants are successful for a period of time,
Right.
usually 1 to 2 growing seasons. So that's up to you to discuss if you want to do it that
I'm not gonna
way.
discuss it, that's fine, right?
yeah, I would think, given it's going in so late in the year, we should probably put in 2 growing seasons and just be done with it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Agreed.
And because, so just write it where the plantings are gonna go in within 30 days, maybe? How do you,
The saplings will go in now, and then the bushes will go in as soon as they open up New England wetland plants again in, I believe, March.
approved restoration activities to be completed by, why don't we say,
April?
May,
April would be fine.
end of April?
Be around? April,
So-
maybe.
Did you get the plants?
Go maybe, yeah, to be sure.
Yeah. I'm just worried about the trees, you know what I mean, planting trees now, you know? We're in
Well-
December with a frost, and I'm not a.
Right, you don't want them to die.
I don't
Let's
plant
see what
trees,
you
but
have him
these-
for.
Let me just briefly, I just got both letters for I'm doing in Spencer for Smock. Arello Corp. and New England Wetland Plants both, and I can supply these emails and letters to the commission. They have no problem with putting plants in at this time of the year, because the root systems are now absorbed in sugars and starches, they're stored in the roots. These are root-balled trees, so they've been in mulch for about 1.5 years too. They pop out of the ground, they go back in the ground. So it's pretty simple, and again, they wrote these letters for me because of the smart case that I have going on with 8 bushes over there
Yeah.
in Spencer. So there's no problem with deciduous plants. What they don't want to see at this time of the year is conifers being planted in the late season. But as long as the ground is, that you can dig with the backhoe and get them in the ground, they see no problem. In fact, they stockpile these things outside all winter long, so it's the same deal.
Yeah, you guys, I
No.
think if you just put in, what'd you say, end of April, have it done by end of April, you guys can decide, you can
Okay.
arm wrestle who wins about
So
putting
there
the
you
trees
go.
in now or not, I don't know. I think that's fine.
2 growing seasons.
2 growing
That's good.
seasons, yes.
Yep. Perfect.
We appreciate it.
A motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the plan under the enforcement order to be executed by April 30th for the 17 trees and the various bushes, and that there be monitoring of the plantings for 2 growing seasons.
Part of that is issuing that, we haven't done the enforcement action yet, so issue the enforcement order with those conditions.
Oh, I would like to issue an enforcement order with those conditions, yes.
And you have a motion for
Well,
that.
we never did an enforcement order, did we?
Here we go.
All
Do I
right.
have a second?
Yes, second.
Okay, any discussion? Seeing none. All in favor?
Eric Gaspar in favor?
Austin Stuber in favor?
Ted?
Edward Glass in favor.
Roy?
I think we lost
Lost
Roy.
Roy.
And Ed Goodwin.
Thank you again very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
And
care,
again,
gentlemen.
thank
Have
you
a-
for Nine
yeah.
Holland for
Have a
that
nice holiday.
drainage way done with DOT.
Hey,
Feel better.
have a great holiday season.
Thank you very much, I appreciate it.
And your tenant who's making the Indian food, it's a nice addition to the town. We have Indian food in town.
Nice.
Oh, there's Indian food?
Thanks,
Okay,
guys.
at the pizza place. Did they have it there?
Enjoy your
It's, my
trip.
wife is Indian, so it's
leaving Tuesday.
Wednesday and Thursday.
At
Wednesday.
the end of the day, we're all working to the same
Yeah,
thing. We're
Wednesday
trying
and
to keep it
Thursday.
nice and clean and,
Wednesday and Thursday, and otherwise it's
you know, we're the
pizza.
first
We
building.
appreciate it.
Well, they have
Yeah.
pizza too, but they do
You know.
Indian dishes on Wednesday and Thursday.
Thank you.
And it's pretty good.
So it's still the same name?
Okay, what's going on now here? What are we up to?
First food, are they
Number
Indian
12.
cooks? No.
Talk about
Going on with the
Ed's
number
got a
12.
party to go to, come on.
Okay, let's go.
But why don't they do Indian food all the time?
All right, number 12.
All right, Carson. 290 Clark Road Extension, request for a certificate of compliance. What do you say, Becky?
I say, we saw it, I recommend approval, we have all the documents we need that are required, issue a complete certificate of compliance with perpetual conditions 47 through 52.
All right.
With regards to the project, 290 Clark Road Extension, DEP file number 300-1123, I'd like to make a motion to issue a complete certificate of compliance with the perpetual conditions of 47 through 52.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none. All in favor?
Eric Gaspar in favor.
Austin Stuber in favor.
Edwin Glass in favor.
And Ed Goodwin in favor. Okay.
All right, number 14 on here, 110 Brookfield Road. I did update you at the last meeting. I mean, I have gone out there, everything's been completed. He had the plan submitted. I did touch base with him today. The lawyer needs to have that recorded. It needs to be, I believe on a Mylar, there's special things they need you to get that recorded, so the lawyer is working on it, and that should be done soon. I anticipate we'll have that on the next meeting agenda, so we can release the enforcement order there. Also, kind of rolling into agent report here in the next meeting, we have some other enforcement orders that we should be able to close out. It looks like our DOT Cedar Lake project is finally complete. I gotta go out there and take a look at the final part of that project, but we should have that on there. We also received a request to close out the 9 Holland Road enforcement order and the open order condition from however many years ago at this point, probably 10 years ago or so. So that will be on there. So those are good things that we're wrapping up here. I hopefully will have an application for a small floating deck structure that was put in on a lakefront property within the 50-foot no new structure. You know, we were made aware of this. They're trying to argue that it wasn't a structure, and I mean, our structure definition is what it is. It doesn't require a building permit because it's not attached to the ground. It's just sitting on the ground, I guess. That's what I was just told. So it requires permitting. He's working with me. Hopefully we'll have a notice of intent for the next meeting. If not, they're not doing any additional work. No resource area impact with what they did. So we should have that coming in for you. I am working with town council on the summons related to the appeal for that enforcement order. I will have a meeting next week with them on that, so I will be able to report to you after that. We'll be looking to schedule an executive session either on our next meeting. If not, if we have to do it before then, I will reach out to everybody to figure that out if necessary.
All right.
I probably should have read that, but were we named individually? Or was it
No.
just the company?
No, it's just you.
Yeah, well, no, I never got a notification.
What's his signature on there? I
Yeah.
didn't think his signature was
Well,
on there.
in other instances where we have been named individually, I got something to the house. I didn't get anything to the house.
No, it was just everybody, yeah.
Yeah,
And then
okay.
we came to us, so,
Yeah.
or our office.
Right.
All right, so
Next meeting, January 4th.
Yep.
Oh, the site visit date for that is, I don't know, well, what we'll have for new projects, but it's supposed to be December 27th, 2 days after Christmas. Is that a problem for everybody?
I'm off.
not a problem
Unless
for me.
I'm skiing, I don't know.
Okay, and,
It's a required meeting for you.
But yeah, my son first has to recover.
Yeah. 27th, okay, great.
all right.
Do I have-
Is somebody bringing Christmas cheers then?
No.
No Christmas cheers?
Motion to,
Oh, yeah.
close the public meeting?
Oh.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Adjourned. Merry Christmas, everyone.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, guys.
Have a nice trip.